This is Regin's Travels podcast. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of Regin's Travels podcast. This is your host, Regin Reyno. Joining us today is Gumiran, a travel blogger and free diver. She is a licensed teacher by profession and a traveler by heart and soul. She is a firm believer of the line, "We all deserve a little wanderlust." She started the Queen's Escape travel blog to tell people a thousandfold stories about her motherland. That Philippines is more than just its pristine beaches and breathtaking summits. It aims to make the readers know about the best places to explore, both the world-renowned and the off-the-beaten path. How rich and diverse its culture is, how delectable the food is, and more. And welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me here as well.
Yeah, I've seen your travel photos on your blog and you have such amazing photos. And I've read there as well that one of your goals is to travel as many provinces as possible in the Philippines and explore the Philippines first. I think even before exploring other countries. And you're also into free diving. I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of wonderful videos and underwater pictures of your free diving. And you've even mentioned on your blog that you believe in the quote that says we all deserve a little wanderlust. You've been to a lot of wonderful places in the Philippines. How did this all start? Your travels or your interest in traveling?
It all started with a burnout. Kasi nga, di ba, when we're very stressed, we find a way to de-stress, to relax. So I found out about going to places, about traveling. So few of my friends were joining trips. Tapos I was so enticed that they are going to these beautiful places. So I said, okay, let me join once. So I started joining yung mga joiner trips pa. And then I really found it very interesting that there are these places in the Philippines that are like that. Kasi I'm not the person actually who I who is into traveling at first. Kasi I'm so parang workaholic. My life revolves around work and then home, work and then home. Kasi ayun nga, siguro I was too burned out that I needed a breather. So ayun, I traveled. But yeah, it's not about travel blogging right away nung nagsimula ako. It's just going to places and then to unwind. Yan lang. And then I have a traveler. I have a niece who is also a blogger, but she's into fashion blogging, lifestyle, ganyan. And then she told me, ayan, you've been going to places. Why don't you write about it? Why don't you tell people about it? So, sabi ko sa kanya, sige, help me start. So, yun, she helped me start with a blog. Then, ayun, dumami na ng dumami. Nagsunod-sunod na yung mga trips and then gigs.
So this
Yeah.
started in 2017. Your travel blog started in 2017. But prior to that, did you already went places, or that was also the start of your travels?
I've been to places as well, even before 2017, but the blog itself started in 2017. So I started actually traveling like around 2015, specifically during my Thailand trip. Pero it's not a travel kasi talaga na na parang leisure travel. I was there to present a research in an international conference. And then I went there alone. So it's like traveling solo as well because after the conference, I had to go by myself, go to places, eat by myself, explore other places in there, which was a little challenging kasi due to language barrier. Then ayun, it was never frequent as it is right now. Parang that Thailand trip was just once a year. It happened once a year. And then the next was in 2016. We just went to a beach because it's summer and then we feel like going somewhere else because it's summer. Then ayun, 2017.
So after a conference, after the meeting or the business trip activities, where did you go in Thailand? Because Thailand is one of my favorite destinations in the world. I really love Thailand.
I love Thailand too. I went to Ayutthaya kasi the university where I presented the research is somewhere north. So I
Mm.
asked the I asked the staff in the hotel where I stayed as to where could I go after this conference. That was a 3-day conference and I booked for 5 days. So I had 2 days to roam around Ayutthaya and explore the temples. It was said like it's like the Ilocos of the Philippines. Parang ganun siya. Where their old Malacanang is, or the oldest temples are, something like that.
Yeah, Ayutthaya is like the historical destination because it used to be the former capital of
Oh.
of Thailand. So it's a kingdom in itself or a city, and it used to be the former capital. So did you go there by yourself?
I actually joined the trip of other research presenters. So
Mm.
there are Cambodians, there are Europeans, and they were like, "Can we go around after this conference?" And I asked them as to when will they be staying. So I was the one who arranged the van. And then we were all just students, graduate students, who extended their stay in Thailand. So there, we went together. We were like 5 or 7.
Mm. And then 2017, you started traveling more, and
Yes.
one of your goals is to go to as many provinces in the Philippines as possible. And you've mentioned that you find meaning in travel. So what's in travel that really interests you in the first place, especially going to a lot of places? I've seen your photos. You've been to a lot of provinces in the Philippines. Like not a lot of people do that, especially here in the Philippines. But I think you purposely just want to go to as much provinces as possible. So what's in travel that really entice you to do this activity?
I want to focus on one word, which is purpose. Initially, my purpose was just to go there, to go to the places where most people are, where most people find a very interesting place to stay in. Just basically what every tourist wants to do, to explore. But then as I go through it, as I travel through the years, it changed. Specifically in 2019. So my 2018 and 2019 trips were really my turning point, I could say. My purpose has become into something to find myself, something like that. Because as I travel, di ba? Eventually it becomes that purpose. Because when you travel, when you experience things, when you actually connect with people, when you see their culture, when you taste their food, when you learn about their language, you also learn something about yourself. Na, okay, so these things are the ones that really make me happy. So these are the things that make me scared. These are the things that make me sad or angry. So it's also about knowing more about myself. Because before also naging purpose ko din yung maging street smart because I'm a person who's not like that before. Kasi nga work, home, that's the only thing that I'm familiar with, not with the other things outside it. So I became a little more independent when I started traveling and there learning more about myself.
Yeah, and I think this was the years when you started solo travel as well, right? Like the
Yeah.
backpacking style of travel.
It was 2018 when I started the solo traveling. Kasi
Yeah.
2017 I was just starting it.
Mm, right. And it sounds cliche, but a lot of people believe that when you travel solo, it's like finding yourself or finding meaning. And I remember when I first started traveling solo, people would ask me that question, or people would think that I was doing that because I was also finding myself, or that was the main reason. But to be honest, for me, I just find traveling solo more fulfilling because I have the freedom to do whatever I want. So it's not necessarily finding myself, but then I've read a lot of books, even movies like Eat, Pray, Love, like this the travel to find themselves. And here you are really going into that path. Like you're saying that you're traveling, especially solo, because you want to find yourself. Wow. So how did it go?
Well, it was, yeah, I don't know if you've read one of my posts on Instagram when I said that it's a journey to self-actualization, stuff like that. It was scary because the more that I get to know myself, the more that I realized that I should have not embarked into that journey because it made me lost along the way. Like, is it really my purpose to find myself? Because it's eventually becoming a journey to find another purpose. Like it's not just about myself anymore. Like I have to find something else. I need to find the real purpose why I'm doing this in the first place. So it's so vague, but it's a purpose of finding a purpose.
Hmm.
It's become like that.
Yeah, me myself initially when I started traveling solo, that was in 2012. Initially, I my purpose is to find myself as well. Like I I'm just curious of this finding yourself things. I was like, maybe in traveling solo, I will find myself or something. But then I did a lot of solo travels, and I don't really know what it means to find yourself. I just find that it I improve in a lot of areas of my life in terms of becoming independent, and you've mentioned becoming street smart. So not really finding myself. So I that concept for me is still I still cannot really grasp the
Like so
concept.
ambiguous.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's more of finding what you really want and what you really need in life.
Exactly. I think it's that about it, like what you really want. So like it's not as deep as what some people think, like finding yourself, like what do you what about yourself? So it's kind of vague. But then like what you've mentioned, I really like what you've said in one of your posts. You've mentioned some people have previously asked me, you said questions like, what do you get from going to places? Why don't you
Yeah.
save your money for the future? And told me that you're not getting any younger. I tell them rather that traveling is a form of investment. I may not, I may have spent a lot of my trips, but what do I get in return? You've mentioned satisfaction, happiness, self-fulfillment, realizations, newfound friends, found myself, learnings. I invest on memories. Abraham Maslow introduced this so-called hierarchy of needs. Traveling has become one of my ways to achieve self-actualization. I really love how you put this into words because this is exactly my main reason why I travel as well, why I travel a lot or as much as possible. And I find it very fulfilling. And you've mentioned even self-actualization because like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom you have, of course, the basic needs, which is physiological, right? What your
Yes.
body needs. But once you achieve that, what's next? So
So
I
it's
think traveling is one of the ways to really achieve self-actualization. And I really think, and I really believe it as well. But when you put it into words, I really love how you said it in one of your posts.
thank you. Because traveling is just really a process of becoming, right? I mean, you want a lot of things in life, and how are you going to become it? Go travel. That's when you'll find eventually how you'll become yourself.
What are your favorite destinations by far in the Philippines that you've been to?
Okay. Number one is Palawan. I love Palawan so much. Maybe it's because I had the best trip in there, the best trip of my life. Another one is Negros Occidental because it's also as diverse as Palawan. Plus, the people are just really, really good everywhere, even taxi drivers, even strangers. They're just so good. And the third one, I'm still thinking about it because it's really challenging to answer this question. Because all of the provinces that I've been to in the Philippines are just really great and they are unique that I can't compare them to the other. So the third one, let's see. Um, it's really challenging. It's really hard. Maybe Sikihor
Oh wow, Sikihor.
or there. So I have Palawan, Negros Occidental, and Sikihor.
Well, I haven't been to Sikihor, but I've seen a lot of amazing pictures. My sister have been there, and she said that it's really an amazing place. I haven't been to Negros Occidental as well, but I've been to Palawan. And I agree, Palawan, not just a place, even the locals are very friendly, very nice. The crime rate is so low that I I there was once I brought my foreign friends to visit the Philippines and we went to Palawan. So
Where in
I told
Palawan have
myself,
you exactly gone to?
I've just been to El Nido, the tourist trail, El Nido and Nakpan Beach and also Puerto Princesa. But I was telling my friends and myself that if you have foreign friends and you want them to showcase the Philippines and you don't want to be embarrassed by, dangers or or a lot of negative stuff, bring them
Shenanigans.
to Palawan. Yes. Especially when you went there, you went on a solo backpacking trip, and that was a 17-day trip. Wow, that was long. I think that was really amazing.
It's the best that I've had so far. Gladly I was able to do it even before this pandemic because I don't know how am I gonna do it again given that we have to, you know, undergo swab test in every thousand provinces that we'll go to. It's really challenging in the budgeting part.
But what made you decide to embark on a solo backpacking trip? Because in our culture, it's very unlikely that people do solo travel, especially if you're a woman. And you
Yes.
did it in 17 days, quite long, relatively long, especially for us Filipinos, and you did it by yourself. What made you do it?
I just had to. It was a decision made a week before the trip, exactly. It was the most stressful year that time for me because of the loads of work. And I said, I have to go somewhere. I have to be alone. I have to be away from the familiar people and faces. So I actually took a ship because taking a plane a week before your trip would really cost much, right? So when you take a ship kasi, it's just the same. Even if you book it year before or a week before or a day
Yeah.
before, it's the same. So I took the ship and then I told my mom, Ma, I'll be leaving home for a month, and she did not allow me. Okay, half a month. I said, and she said, okay, go as long as you go back home safe and cool. Then she gave me the blessing, and then I went there. Glad I was actually with a few friends that I met in those towns. So I went there alone, but I was with a friend or two in some days. On some days during that trip, maybe for example during my Palawan trip, the Coron Palawan trip, it's 1 week. I was with a friend for 2 days or 3 days. During my El Nido trip, it's a week. Sorry, it's almost a week. I was there with a friend for 2 days or 3 days as well. But it's mostly me, myself, and I during the
Yeah,
trip.
yeah, and I think that's really exciting, traveling by yourself and you did a backpacking style of travel, so it's more independent and you just have a backpack. I think that's really adventurous and memorable.
It is memorable. A story to tell even before I die.
And you went to Balabac, Palawan, which is off the beaten track, and I've seen pictures. Wow, really amazing.
It's the best that I've been to in Palawan. Well, Coron is best for all the diving spots. El Nido is best for its locals and parties and restaurants. Balabac is best for being laid back. And I was really surprised because most of the people in Palawan are Muslims.
Mm. Oh, I
Yes,
didn't know that.
I didn't know about it as well. I went there. This is a funny story. I went there wearing a pair of short shorts, a really short short, and a tank top. So I hopped into a van from Puerto Princesa to Batarasa, I think. Then from Batarasa, I took another van. Yeah, I think there were two vans. And I got off for a while to buy a drink, and people were really looking at me, and some were really catcalling me, and I don't know how to really get myself out from there. The van driver actually grabbed me, put sarong around my waist, and said, "Let's go
Yeah.
back. You can't just walk around like that in here. These people are Muslims." So there. That's why I really emphasize on my blog to not wear such clothes when going to Balabac. But then it's okay to be wearing something like that in the islands because they are very open. with the idea of wearing swimwears or something because they are also Catholics na. Some are Muslims but open-minded Muslims. Right there. So the reason why I was able to wear bikini somehow in the island.
Were you able to go to Onok Island?
I did. I stayed there for a night.
Wow. Wow, amazing. That island became famous when George Tapan is a one of our best travel photographers in the Philippines, a travel photographer, and his winning shot for the Nat Geo contest was taken in that island. So he was able to showcase Onok Island. That's why I knew about that place. Very
Ano,
beautiful.
it's really amazing. It's the only island that I've been to where you can see the sunrise on your right and then the sunset on the left.
Wow.
When I woke up in the morning, I just have to face this way, and then in the afternoon, I just have to face this way and enjoy the sunset. It's really amazing. Because the turtles are just everywhere.
Wow. And it's not very touristy, right? Not a lot of tourists are there.
Yes, they only limit it because it's also pricey. If you are to stay for a day, like say for example a day trip, it's 3,500 during that time when I went there, and an overnight stay costs 5,000 pesos. But it's worth it.
I think it's
Worth.
worth it. Yeah, yeah. And you've mentioned taking a ship or a ferry going there. I remember when I was young, we always took the ferry. We always took ferries going to Mindanao because I grew up in Luzon. I grew up in Isabela in Luzon, and our relatives are in Mindanao. So every year we would go visit our relatives. So we would always take the boat because during that time, Cebu Pacific wasn't a thing yet. Airfare is so expensive. And that was one of my most memorable travel experiences, moments, taking the ferry. So if I have to choose, I would always choose, if I have the time, taking the boat or the ferry and going around the Philippines compared to taking a flight.
You would take the ferry.
Yeah. It's I think it's an amazing experience because it's kind of like you're on a cruise.
Yeah, that is so true. My trip in Palawan is really epic. I have to just go back into it because I booked the cheapest accommodation, which is
The
the
economy.
actually lower than the economy.
Oh.
There's a lower, there's a more basic accommodation than the economy. I'm not really that maarte with accommodation, but then this one, I think I would not dare, but it's charged to experience. I would not book it again because it's in the lowest part of the ship.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Next
yeah.
to actually the vehicles are on the lowest, and then
Right.
next to it is the accommodation that I booked. There's no air condition. There are electric fans, but they're just on the walls, and I was situated in the middle, and then it just smelled like something that you would not want to smell overnight for the whole night. Okay, so but it was amazing. At least I get to experience that. Anyway, I would like you, I would also choose the ferry because we are given this opportunity to go around the Philippines with to go travel. Am I allowed to mention Brantony here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure, for sure.
Anyway, so there's this I really love joining contests. In 2018, I joined this Trip of Your Life by To Go Travel. So they are supposed to give 15 individuals a chance to go around the Philippines by sea. But then they only chose 12 because the other three were not allowed to take a leave from work. So we were 12 individuals. We don't know each other. We're really strangers. We're total strangers. And then we went around the Philippines by sea. We went to Batangas. Then from Batangas, we went to Visayas, Katiklan. And then from Katiklan, we went to Iloilo. We went to Negros. We went to Cagayan de Oro just by ship and by land. And it's one of the most memorable as well because it's the longest trip that I took, but not solo. It took me 22 days just traveling
Wow.
because
Wow.
um it was 2 weeks before my trip to Siargao. We were supposed to be there for an outreach, and our trip to Siargao was like um a week, supposed to be a week. So I had to cancel few days of it so I could finish the trip of your life. And then from Cebu, I just canceled my trip from Manila to Siargao. I just booked another one from Cebu to Siargao. So that's the reason why it took me 22 days to go around.
Yeah, but that's amazing though. I can imagine going into that kind of trip, especially with a lot of other people that you haven't met yet. So you'll make friends. And I've experienced meeting people on the road that you don't know initially, but then because you're traveling, it's like initially you don't know each other, right? But then because of a lot of common interests in terms of travel, then you will just click. You will just click and you'll become friends. And up to this date, I still contact them once in a while. So I think I can imagine that was an epic trip. And wow, 22 days.
It is.
What was the accommodation though? Is it like were you in a cabin, house in a cabin, or the tourist accommodation?
We were very lucky as contestants because we were given the best accommodation.
The suite. The
Yeah,
visit the suite. Oh wow. That's wow. That's just
we're very
amazing.
privileged.
Yeah, and all
We're
expenses
also
paid.
yes, and they also gave us allowance during that
That's
trip.
when is to go doing this again? To go,
I don't know. They
calling to
say
go. You
we were
have
actually
to.
looking for it, actually at least for a reunion, but they're not into doing it again. I don't know. But yeah,
um.
I hope they would do it again because it was really epic. It's the first time that they did
Oh
that, I
wow.
think.
I think that's one of the most epic trips you can take here in the Philippines.
It
Yeah.
is.
And to go was formerly called Super Ferry, and that was one of my favorite
Yeah.
ships when I growing up. Wow.
Were you taking super ferry from Manila to Mindanao?
Yeah, when we were young, we would take Super Ferry before Super Ferry one, two, three, and then yeah, and then a new company bought them, changed it into Go, but that was basically Super Ferry. So I remember taking to Go just recently before the pandemic, and and memories just flood into my mind. Like this was the exact same spot when we played when we were young because that was Super Ferry 3, they say. So I took that ship before, so I was reminiscing the memories. So it's exactly the same ship. It's amazing. And you're
Brilliant.
able to mention as well on your blog that you wanted to visit all the 83 provinces of the Philippines.
As
And,
much as
and yeah, and it's quite a common feat amongst travel bloggers, especially amongst our group Pinoy travel bloggers. There's even what they call Club PH 81 or Club 81 PH, like these people who have traveled to all the provinces of the Philippines. Because before it used to be 81, but now it's 83. And initially, that was also one of your goals. So, what made you decide to do that? And did it change nowadays in terms of that visiting the all the provinces of the Philippines?
I still want to travel to all the provinces of the Philippines, but it's just that I don't want to look at it as something like a bucket list or a list. Because doing so makes me think like I have to move forward. Like I just can't go back to these places that I've been to without going to the others that I haven't been to first. So it's like that. It's like okay, this is my it's something like this. Okay, it's my 45th province. I don't want it to be like that. I don't want it to be dubbed as the 45th province. Let's say I wanted to dub it as as mountain province because there are just a lot of things that I want to remember about it, not just kung pang ilan siya in the list. Okay, because there are just a lot of things to remember in those trips.
Yeah, I can understand. So you're saying that it is not just a number because in terms of like that, like accomplishing these number of things, number of countries for some people, sometimes they become just a number. They become just
Yes,
a number game, and it's too mechanical. That's why I know a lot of my traveler friends as well who stopped doing this bucket list thing because they've realized that having a bucket list sometimes it feels like it's a chore. Like I have to take this off. I have to like, oh, I have
yes,
to take this off. So it becomes a chore instead of savoring the experience. So is that really what you felt as well? That's why you stopped counting provinces.
yes. That's why I don't know how to answer the question. How many provinces have you been to? I mean, give me a map. I can tell you what provinces and what happened in those provinces. It's not that I'm too lazy to count. It's just that I don't like it to be that way, to be seen that way as to how many. Because when you say how many, when someone asks you how many, it's like okay, oh, you visited a lot. Oh, you visited these. So I don't want it to be like that. Kasi parang it's a game of uh who has the most and who has the more when it's not supposed to be like that,
Mm.
right? It's not supposed to be who traveled into most of the provinces in the Philippines. I don't like it to be like that. So I had to change my view of traveling into most. I like how you rephrase the question into traveling into most of these provinces as much as possible, a lot of places in the Philippines, than asking me how many I've been.
Right, right. And traveling is should be very focused on the individual, not really like a game of competition between between
Yeah.
travelers, because we all have different experiences and different purpose. So yeah, like not counting the number of provinces or even countries makes sense to some people.
Yes.
And I've seen your trip to, because one of my favorite destinations in the Philippines is Sagada. I was also a backpacker, and I think one of the best places to backpack in the Philippines in terms of the vibe is Sagada. Yeah, and you've been there.
It was actually a trip out of the blue. We were actually supposed to go to Cagayan. It's supposed to be like this. I love trip like this. I can't just tell it right away. It was Christmas 2019, and then my friend and I decided to just go somewhere. We just thought of going to Isabela. That's my hometown, by the way. We just
Oh
decided to
wait,
go to
sorry,
Isabela.
where in Isabela? That was where I was
Cabagan.
born.
Cabagan, Isabela. Where are you?
I'm from Santiago.
Oh, we're from Cabagan, the town between Cagayan and Isabela and Tuguegarao.
Oh wow, it's almost near Cagayan already.
Yes, it's
Cagayan
just a few
province.
minutes away from Cagayan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yeah, we decided to go to Isabela, but then he said, "Oh, we'll be driving it because it's gonna be a long drive. So why don't we stop by these provinces as we go to Isabela?" Okay, so it we went to Quirino, we went to Isabela. That's the plan. And then we went to Cagayan, and then we are supposed to go to Ilocos Norte, but then the rain was the worst during that time. And the road between Ilocos Norte and Cagayan was really impassable. So we had to reroute. That's when we went to Sagada, and it's a decision, best decision ever made during that trip. Because Sagada is just something um that is enchanting. I don't know how to describe it. It's just really good. It's not the weather. I think it's the I don't know. It is really enchanting, and you don't know what will make you fall in love about it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, like they say some of the best trips are the unplanned ones, or the ones that you take a different route instead of following your plan. Like usually, and a lot of movies have been made about these kinds of trips. And it's good you're
Yeah.
able to go to Sagada because, like what you've mentioned, the charm there is really different. It's hard to explain, to be honest. It's hard to
Mm.
explain. But in the Philippines, like especially if you're a backpacker, it's a must visit place in the Philippines. So to our listeners out there, if you haven't been to Sagada after the pandemic, you should visit. Although it's a bit pricey. It's a bit pricey, to be
It
honest.
is because
There,
they require a guide in every place that you have to go to.
right, and
Must
even the
be
restaurants and the
real.
cafes are
Yes.
pricey. I think they're thinking because they are tourist spot, but the charm there is quite similar to places, backpacker places, kind of like Pai in Thailand or Cusco in Peru, because it's in the mountains, and at the same time, a lot of travelers. I think one of the things that make it that makes it a good the vibe that makes the vibe really good is the presence of travelers, a lot of travelers. So you have like-minded people in the single area, and you can interact with them as well.
Did you get a chance to talk about travelers with the locals in Sagada?
Travelers with a local. What do you mean?
Because during our stay, we had this idea that they did not like a lot of tourists in their place. I don't know if you've
Oh,
got.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't spoke to them when I was there, but I've read articles on the internet.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't like it that much. Actually, we were in Sagada weaving something.
Hmm.
We went there by foot, and we were really fascinated. And then we are just really sad that we are not able to witness the weaving itself. But they said it has schedule, and that other people had to take a rest. We respect that. And then I don't know how we came into that topic. And then the owner just said, actually, we don't like a lot of people coming in here in our place because they don't want how their culture and traditions are tainted by the, I don't know, the others' ideologies or others' practices. They just don't know. They just don't like it when their culture and traditions are disrespected by other people without those people knowing it. It's cultural. There's a cultural conflict or something in there. They just so there.
Yeah, I've read about that as well, and it makes sense because a lot of these cultural destinations are being, especially the ones that became popular, are kind of like being destroyed by tourists. A lot of places in Laos, or even in Thailand, which once used to be a quiet cultural town where the culture is so preserved, but then these tourists go there, especially the Western tourists, and they bring alcohol and they party and destroy the culture. And I think that's one of the reasons why that a local said that to you. And I think that's the sentiment mostly of the elderly, the older generation, because they want the
Yeah.
culture to be preserved. Yeah, it makes sense. In Lao, I remember a place called Vang Vieng. It used to be a very quiet town, but because of the influx of tourists and mass tourism, especially nowadays, not just backpacking, but mass tourism from countries like China and South Korea, with these tour groups. So the culture is kind of like destroyed. Imagine they are a very conservative culture, and you see Western tourists in bikini walking in the town, something like that,
Uh,
because there's a river. So these foreign tourists would swim in the river in their bikini, and then because they're used in their country, they will just walk in their bikini and buy something at a store in the town, and they do that. So it's like kind of like a
because it's
disrespect to the
okay.
culture. Yeah, it's okay in their country, but then you go to this conservative Lao small town, then it's not okay for the locals.
I actually talked about that topic in a conference. I was invited as a speaker in this conference of for the tourism students in Region 4, Cavite. It was held in Cavite, and I talked about that topic over tourism and its impact to the locals. And it's really what's the term for that? It's not disturbing, but it's really something that has turned a lot of things around, greatly impacted the lives of the locals, not just their economy, even their culture, the way of life, basically, of the locals.
And one of the advocacy of your travel blog is to have a sustainable travel.
Yes. And that's also a thing that I talked about hand in hand with over tourism, because it's the only way that we can contribute to these communities as we travel. Sustainability is the key.
Right. And one of the ways to be sustainable in our travels is to respect our destination.
Yes. And when we say sustainability, because some people would think that it's just about the environmental aspect, but
Right,
no,
right.
sustainability is a four pillar aspect with the culture, with the economy, with the environment. Sorry, it's three pillar pala there.
Yeah. So culture, environment, and yeah, the economy. Great,
Yes.
great.
we-
Your Instagram is full of wow, amazing free diving photos. It's just these free diving photos. It's really amazing because it just portrays how relaxed you are underwater, and a lot of people are scared of being underwater. Me myself, I've tried scuba diving once, and I know how dangerous it is. But it just looks so relaxed when you do it, looking at your videos and your photos. So how did this sport free diving start? And there's also a question from one of our listeners. Her name is Ruby Kaimo. She's my friend.
I
She's
remember.
asking, yeah, Ruby. She's asking, how did you learn free diving and where? And most importantly, why? What's in free diving that's made you so passionate about it?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of things to talk about free diving, but let me start with how it started. It was 2017, and there is this follower that I have on Instagram, and he also added me on Facebook, who invited me and asked me if I want to learn how to free dive. So my closest friend and I went to Batangas, where he actually taught us how to free dive. So because I'm based in South Luzon, the nearest diving site that I could get into is Batangas.
Hmm.
You know, the birth of scuba,
Anilaw?
Nilaw. Yes. So he taught us how to free dive. He taught us the basics such as finning, the equalization, the breath holding, and the other stuff that we need to learn, such as the gear. So that was just a basic lesson that he gave us, but it was something informal. So after that, I did not dive because I don't have the gear. Plus, he said that we can't dive alone, which is actually true. You cannot dive alone because some things might happen and you might not have someone to look after you. That's really risky. So the next time I did free diving was in Coron, but I was only wearing short fins, and it was more of like snorkeling. But I was able to at least go in depth. That's a little, but I can't just go deeper because I don't have anyone with me to look after, but just the boat. So I took diving seriously after that because I saw how great Coron, Palawan's underwater is. I took a class in 2019 with Ocean Limits in Batangas. It's a newly found free diving school that time in 2019, and then that's when I became more frequent. I became a more frequent diver. It it was like almost every month, actually twice or three times a month, I would dive because it's more than what you can see. It's more than just, wearing bikini or trying to be so sexy underwater. It's actually relaxing. It's really relaxing. Well, a lot of people would think that it's really scary to hold your breath underwater, but it's the most relaxing thing that you can ever do.
That's what I'm thinking because especially what you do, you go to a really deep part. You go really deep, and what I'm thinking is, what if you want to breathe? Okay, so you feel like you're running out of breath, you want to breathe, and you're going up, but then you won't reach the surface because you will lose. You'll lose, or your brain would collapse because of lack of oxygen. Then you might die. That's what I'm thinking. That's why I was thinking, wow, this is quite a scary sport.
That's the reason why you can never dive alone because that happens a lot to different free divers. Though it has never happened to me because we were also taught about contractions. I don't know if you're familiar with contractions, the urge to breathe, right? When you feel like breathing already, you'll also get that feeling underwater. And then when
Yeah.
you do, you have to go back up for oxygen. You just have to listen to your body. The reason why a lot of people are into free diving because it's a way to relax, to reduce stress and anxiety. It's a way to learn more about connecting your mind and body, about learning about your body, listening to your body. So it's more of like the mind and body connection.
Yeah, I have a friend who scuba dives, and one of the reasons why I try scuba diving as well is because I ask her, why do you do this? It's risky, it's expensive. And the main reason that she's doing it, she told me, is because whenever she does scuba diving, it is, what was the term? It's very, she is in the moment. She is present. Like she says, like it's like I forget all the cares in the world. It's like I'm just being in the moment. And truly, when I tried scuba diving, I really felt that as well. Like these kinds of activities makes you be in the moment, and it's kind of like meditative. It's kind of like a
It's
meditation.
it's the closest thing to flying, right? I don't know if you felt that way when you were diving because you're just so weightless in the water. Even if you're carrying that scuba tank, you're still weightless. because of the
Okay.
BC or the
Yeah.
buoyancy compensator. But anyway, it's the closest thing to flying that you can flying underwater.
But looking at videos, I think I would rather do free diving just because I think you're more free from the word. It's free diving. Like in scuba diving, whenever you ascend, you have to ascend slowly and consider a lot
Yeah,
of things. But for free diving, if you want to ascend, just ascend, I think it's
that
more
is
free. I think I would rather free dive.
you should try it because it's really challenging in scuba diving because you have that's true. You have to think about a lot of things. Your oxygen, how much oxygen do you have, that you have to stop at 5 meters as a safety stop. But in free
Yeah.
diving, if you want to go, you can just go up. And you were told, right, as to why you can just go up in scuba diving
Yeah.
because of the oxygen that you're breathing in. It's different from what we have, the natural oxygen that we have. So in free diving, kasi it's the same oxygen that you carry down in the depth, and it's the same oxygen that you breathe in. So it's perfectly fine to just go up. Plus, it's cheaper.
It
Cheaper.
that's the best part.
Yeah. And it's so funny that a lot of people would think that it's free. But no, the reason why it's free diving because it's free from any breathing apparatus. That's why. Not that it's actually free if you have your gear.
Yeah. And I've noticed you're using the Decathlon brand. Is that one of
Yeah.
your sponsors?
Yes, they are my brand partner.
Wow,
For
great. Because that's one of my that's when I was living in Beijing, that's my favorite store, Decathlon. And now I live in Mindanao. There's no Decathlon store here. I kind of miss that store because usually all of the things that I need for sports, I just go to Decathlon. And the reason why is because they're not expensive, but at the same time, it's high quality,
good one.
to be honest.
You can just have it delivered at your doorstep.
Oh,
They have
really?
an
Okay.
yes, they have a website where you can order and it's free shipping when you get at
Oh,
least
great.
2,000. Yes.
Great. You're a great endorser.
Yeah. Because that's the thing that a lot of people from Visayas and Mindanao are asking. How can
Yeah.
we buy the stuff that you're promoting where when we are in here? I would tell them that there's a website and you can order and you can have your items shipped for free if you're going to purchase 2,000 pesos and up there.
Looking at your videos of free diving, it seems to me that you're an expert already. You know, the way you glide in the water, the way you're so graceful and all that stuff. You go very deep. But then you've mentioned you just started this in 2019, right? Is it
Yeah,
2019?
I
Yeah,
took
so
it seriously in 2019.
yeah, it's not very long, like till this date, and I think your learning curve was really quite quick. Were you diving before this, like sort of always going to the beach or something? Because I think it's a very quick learning curve.
I swim even
Okay.
before when I was young. I'm very comfortable in the water, even open water. Because there are people who are comfortable in the pool, right? But when you take them to the open water, they just really are scared. But I am not that.
That's me. Yeah, that's me. I am.
Or really.
Yeah, I know how to swim, but in terms of open water, because a lot of news about accidents and all that stuff, like the currents. Yeah. Did you grow? Is Kabagan near the sea?
No, it's really far. It's near Cagayan River. But we don't swim in Cagayan River.
No, I love Cagayan River. Cagayan River is the one at Callao Cave, right? I've been to Callao Cave.
Yeah, Calao Cave is in Cagayan. In Cavite,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, that river is beautiful. Anyways, like in free diving, do you need to be really fit physically? Do you need to have certain workouts if you want to do this?
Um, as regards being fit, it's not necessary. As long as you know how to relax, then you're good to go. But with the
Okay.
fitness, just I just prefer to be like this. That's why because I also do yoga. Yoga is somehow similar to doing free diving at some point because it's meditative as well. It's actually our stretching routine before free diving. So there.
So what are some of your favorite free diving destinations?
Of course, number one is Apo Reef. It's the second largest contiguous reef in the world, next to the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. And I'm
Oh
really
wow.
glad I was able to go there before this pandemic you can just see sharks everywhere and they're not scary. The second one is Coron, Palawan, of course, because aside from coral gardens, there are historical shipwrecks that you can dive into. And then Batangas. Batangas is so underrated
Mm.
for me. It's so underrated, but it just has a lot of great diving spots. Plus, the resorts nearby these spots are actually putting something into the water like jeepney, motorcycles, bars underwater. I
Oh
don't know
wait,
if you've seen it.
so they just put them. I thought they were there like naturally. They just put
And
them.
some resorts actually put them
Okay.
because they put it in there not to be just not just as instant attractions, but actually corals grow into those stuff.
Mm.
So
Right.
yeah, that's their main purpose.
Yeah, and you've mentioned Apo Reef. Where's Apo Reef again? I am not familiar with that.
In Tablayan, in Mindoro.
Oh, in Mindoro. Yeah, because I'm always confused, and I know a lot of people are also confused between Apo Reef and the one in Cebu. There's kind of like an Apo something in Cebu.
It's in Dumaguete. It's Apo Island.
Yeah, there you go in Dumaguete, right near Cebu as well. Yeah, okay. So let's just make it clear. So that's in Mindoro. Yeah, I know a lot of divers keep on mentioning Apo Reef that it's.
Because it's
I didn't
really
know
amazing.
it's I didn't know it's second to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia in
I
terms of
did my
diversity.
research. I did my research and found out that it's the second largest. I said, as a diver, it's a must to go there. And gladly, we are based in the south, and we did not have to take a lot of trips. Just a ship, and then a van, and then a boat. Then we're there in Apori.
So you've mentioned a while ago, or you've mentioned in your blog that one of your advocacy is to promote the Philippines as a travel destination. That Philippines is more than just the beaches or the mountains. So what what really made you, or what's in the Philippines that really made you appreciate our country, our motherland, and made you want to promote it to foreign tourists as well, or to other people, apart from
It's
the
diversity.
beaches?
It's diversity. The diversity of the attractions in those places, the diversity of the culture and traditions. See, it's really amazing that when you stay in Central Luzon, you meet the Tagalogs, you
Mm.
meet the people in the city, but then just take a drive, like a 6 or 8 hour drive from Manila, you'll meet a lot of people who has a very unique culture, right? Say, for example, the Igorots. It's not often that you'll see people being able to preserve their culture like that, despite the changes brought by the time,
Right,
right?
right.
So yeah, the diversity of the people, and it's so amazing that we have lots of languages as well, right? That even as a Filipino, you'll be amazed at, oh, okay, so we have hundreds of languages to learn. That is so sad that people think that they're just dialect, but no, they are languages.
Exactly. I always tell my friends this one is a misconception that people call them dialects. It's actually
Yeah,
a
right.
language. It's not a dialect just because it's so different. When you say dialect, for example, Tagalog, the Tagalog language, the dialect is the Batangueño or the Caviteño. That's a
Yes.
dialect because you can understand them as well in a way. But for language, they're totally different. So a Cebuano and Ilocano, they cannot understand each other. So that's a language. So yeah, I also tell my friends this as well.
There. So imagine you just have to take a bus ride or a plane, and then you're like in a totally different place. But same people. I mean, same hospitality. It's just that different culture, different taste buds, right? When you go to Central Luzon, it's more of a savory. It's more of a something like sweet, savory. And then when you go into Southern Luzon, it would be something spicy, like
Bicol.
the
Yeah.
right? It's amazing
Wow.
how things change in just a matter of distance and time. That's
Right,
why,
right. And I think it's also one of the activities that you can do in traveling domestically is to have a food trip. Like you've
yes,
mentioned different cuisine. You go to northern Luzon and try their pinapaitan, and then you go to Pampanga and try their, kare-kare, which you cannot really find a good one in Mindanao, but then Mindanao has its own cuisine or dish as well, just in one country. Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's amazing how the first time I set foot into Mindanao, we ordered sinigang. I thought it's the sinigang, the sour sinigang, and they gave us something like a nilagang kind of fish.
Oh, it's not
It's
very sour, yeah.
the sour sinigang that I know of, but it's something
Yeah.
like a nilaga type of a dish.
And it's not that sour.
It's not that sour. Where is
Yeah.
it? Iligan, in Iligan.
Oh, yeah. Maybe they don't know how to cook a proper sinigang there because it's not the origin is not there. For me personally, because I grew up in Isabela, right? So I know this pinakbet in the Ilocano kind of
Mm,
pinakbet, which is with bagoong,
mm.
and it's really good, especially you eat it with rice. But then if you go to the Tagalog area, they have a different version of pinakbet. Instead of bagoong, they have alamang. So it's so different, and I prefer the Ilocano version.
Very familiar with the taste of it. That's why we prefer it more than anything else.
Yeah. So what else is your like this one province that you haven't been to yet in the Philippines, but you really wanted to visit?
So hard. Not a lot.
For
There are
example, like
different.
like on top of your list, like a lot of all the provinces you haven't been to, this one province, like, oh, I really want to experience this
Oh,
province.
it's either southern or it's either Leyte or Samar.
Oh, okay.
Either of the two. Because I am really curious about its people. I've heard a lot about the people, and I don't know if you've heard a lot about them too.
Yeah.
I am half scared and half excited
Waray.
going there.
Yeah, Waray.
I don't know
I've
if you're
heard.
familiar with the Pitik culture of the people.
I didn't know that, but I know that they say Waray has a connotation of being brave.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about the Pitik. We
What
had
what about the
a
Pitik?
relative. It's like this when your face is new to them and you seem so strange to them. They would seem to follow you around, and then if they don't like you, they would do this Pitik on you. They would what they would do. They would throw something in your food, and then that's it. That's the end of you.
Really? Well, I didn't know. That's quite scary.
That's scary.
That's quite
That's
scary.
why
Oh, wow.
I have a
Wow.
co-teacher who had a cousin who died because of that. They just went to Samar for a feast,
Mm.
fiesta. No, you know how it's at like in the Philippines, right? If it's a fiesta, they would invite people to come to eat in their homes, and then they did because they were invited by a friend. And then on their way home, their cousin was suffering from a very bad stomach ache, and when they arrived into Manila, he died. And that's the last thing that they remember that they did. They
Wow.
ate somewhere, and
Wow. That's weird.
it is.
But I've heard about this place, I think in Leyte or Samar, Biliran. I think it's called Biliran, where it's kind of like very mythical. Sometimes the city, the city cannot
It's here
be. Is it
in
Biliran?
this
Have you heard about it?
Biringan. The
Biringan, like
Biringan, yeah. It's a very
that's
controversial.
that's an interesting story as well. Wow.
I saw it in Jessica, so have you?
Yeah, it's like it's
It was
haunted,
here.
and sometimes you cannot find it. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It's like the underworld. Oh, wow.
Not a lot of people actually found it, but there were few. That's why we can't say that it's not true.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. For me, I really wanted to visit Holo, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi. Those provinces. I'm dying to go there.
I'm
I
dying to go there. I was supposed to go there in 2019, but then there was this bombing. There was this bombing in Peru. I did
Yeah,
not
I
rush
remember
to.
that. Yeah, but looking up videos and stories, I really because I want destinations that is not very touristy, like off the beaten track, and I think I would enjoy. And also, Agusan Marsh. It's Have you heard
Yes,
about Agusan Marsh?
yes, I heard about it.
Yeah.
It's too bad I was not able to go there despite the countless trip I've made to somewhere near the place. I would definitely go back Agusan for the Agusan Marsh.
And now we are in the pandemic. We're experiencing pandemic, and we've been to a lot of lockdowns, quarantine, and all that stuff. And as travelers, I think it's one of our sufferings, especially as we have itchy feet, or when we want to see the world and we want to have these experiences at this age. But then this quarantine or pandemic happened, and I've read about your article on your blog, chapters of a traveler in quarantine, and I really like what you said there, because not a lot of people are brave in telling people what they're experiencing, that in terms of the mental health, anxiety, and all that stuff. So can you elaborate that a bit, and tips to our listeners, especially travelers out there who are experiencing these things regarding the effect of the pandemic?
It was really depressing when we learned about the lockdowns. But there are some things that we just can't go through. We can just push through because there are, it when they said when there's a will, there's a way. It's just that pandemic is something that will really get in the way into that saying, right? So we had to stay. We had no choice. It was depressing in my part because I made my own trip of my life during that year. I'm supposed to go backpacking with my mom. We are supposed to go Luzon to Mindanao, and then the next thing I know, I'm just at home browsing my photos, my travel photos. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be back here. I'm supposed to be traveling. So it's really more depressing when you do that, when you go back to your photos, because you can just go anywhere. So it took me weeks before I could finally accept that I could not go elsewhere, that I have to stay and face whatever I have to face right now. And that the only thing that made me through is the hope that this would end. It will really take long, but it's just a matter of patience and waiting. Gladly, we could go to places now, to a few places now, compared to when we can just go last year. So somehow I could adjust, but there's just something different about going to places now because you're scared of the uncertainty. You're scared of contracting the virus, but then it's got you just have to do what you gotta do because it's like I'm suppressed for a year for doing something that I've been doing for the past years. So I just had to tone down a little of what I'm doing. And gladly I am back on track somehow.
So, any tips to our listeners on how to cope up with this, especially those who are travelers, or in general, not just for travelers?
It's really hard to advise or to say things because it's not the same with different people. Some people are just so strong to go through the challenges, but some people are just they can. Not that they're weak, but there are just other things they have to consider. So for those people who travel a lot, just like I do, or also who also experience this, being locked down. Um, I don't know if this is toxic positivity, but I know one day this will all end and we'll all have our time again to travel. Just have to be patient and enjoy the little thing. Yeah, that's what made me get through this pandemic, especially the ECQ. I had to look into the things that I have right now. And I kind of stopped thinking about the things that I can't have and I can't do because doing so would make me really more depressed. So enjoy the little things, enjoy the little diversions that you have right now.
And you've mentioned on your blog as well, one of the turning points is when you quit just being in your room and just browsing your phone, but went outside and did not outside, but like did some exercise, even indoors, did probably yoga, stretching, or exercise, and read your favorite book. So I think that's one of those things that people can do as well instead of just looking at your phone.
Yes. I had to stop. Look, I sorry, I had to start my phone.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
As I've said, you can enjoy the things that you can do that you have right now. Just those. That's what I did as well, and that made me do, especially meditation, reading, and yoga. They just help a lot. So you just have to choose the right thing. Because during those times, admit it or not, we were also doing a lot of things that are not good to us, like, binge watching, not sleeping at all, eating whatever we want to eat,
Yeah, yeah. Especially the eating part. A lot of people. Oh, yeah.
right? And I'm very glad to see on social media how a lot of people turn their attention into taking care of plants, in
Mm-mm.
learning a little dance, painting, and then, yeah, working out. It's the time of my life that I've seen a lot of people work out.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. Like I find time to work out. And you can think of it this way as well. Like some people travel to destinations to do yoga. They go to Bali to do yoga. They go to Thailand to
Uh,
do yoga. So since we can't do it, then why not just do it in your home? Yeah.
yes, and there are lots of YouTube videos that would help you. Those people who go to Bali and Thailand for yoga are really passionate about doing it, and it's also one of the things that you can do to be a yoga instructor.
Yeah, I really love the reading a book part that you've mentioned. So I find it really relaxing, and it really is something that would manage mental health problem if you read regularly. So that's also one of the things that I can advise our listeners reading a book, especially your favorite book. And you've mentioned this book. You've mentioned this book, Chopra
Seven
something. That
Spirit, it's Deepak Chopra's Seven Spiritual Laws of Success.
all right?
The
Yeah,
myth.
I
Yeah,
haven't read that one, but because of this episode, I'm gonna
you should
look at it
really.
and read that book. Yeah. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having a good talk.
And
I guess.
before we end, any final message to our listeners out there regarding free diving and travel in general?
Okay. For those who aspire to start their free diving journey, I wrote an article on my website on how can you start. So it's entitled "How Do I Start Free Diving?" And then everything that you need to know as a beginner, it's there, including the schools that you can enroll in. Um, and for the travelers, kapit lang, hold on. I know that this is a temporary and a very long pause on what we are passionate about, but this will end soon, and we can see it with the other countries. We'll get there. There would be this time that we don't have to wear masks, that we don't have to undergo any of these tests, but it will take long. It will take long, but then um, you just have to be patient. And as I've said, enjoy the little things that you have right now in your hand.
Do you have anything to promote or plug in?
Guys, my Instagram account. So if you want to see more of the travel and free diving photos, videos, or content, I have my Instagram. It's Gumiran, and my Facebook page also promotes this travel and free diving stuff. It's the Queen's Escape, and then my website, thequeensescape.com, and my YouTube account as well. It's Gumiran. I do a little vlogging.
Yeah, guys, follow her Instagram account is amazing, and she has 11,000 followers, almost 12,000 followers. Wow, congratulations. And I really love your writing, by the way, on your blog, on your travel blog. I love the way you write. Guys, check out her travel blog, The Queen's Escape. Thank you once again, Anne, for being on the show. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time. And thank you guys for tuning in. Before we end, I'm going to leave you with this travel quote. Investment in Travel is an Investment in Yourself by Matthew Karsten. So this has been your host, Regin. Till the next episode.
Okay, thanks, Regin.